Welcome home, where we provide information, inspiration, and motivator after motivator after motivator here on America's Next. I have Erica Hickey here with me today. How you doing, Erica?
Hey, Cedric, I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely, absolutely. And how's your week been so far?
It's just started, but it's been wonderful. I was able to take yesterday off and go hike Yosemite. So I'm blessed. Yeah.
You went to go hike Yosemite?
I did. Yeah, I didn't do Half Dome. I did Upper Yosemite Falls. It took me about 10 hours total. I hiked 12 miles.
Wow. Tell me what was that like? What was that like? How did you prepare?
So I've done the hike before, but it was a few years ago. So, the terrain changes. You don't know exactly what it might look like that day. But I did prep by making sure that I got a good night's sleep. I had everything packed the day prior so I could just leave on time because it's a 3-hour drive there.
Okay.
So I left at 2 a.m. from my house, got there at about 6:30, and then started my hike about 6:45. And making sure that you have the right shoes is so crucial, and making sure you have enough water. I can't stress that enough. And your power snacks, and you just got to make sure you got your sunscreen and just everything that you don't want to complain about. Make sure that you have it for the trip. Yeah.
Right. I gotta say, what was the toughest part of hiking Yosemite?
The toughest part was more so the ascent, so going up. The whole hike up to Yosemite Point is strictly straight upwards. There's no breaks in between. There's a lot of switchbacks, so you're going upwards and you're turning this way, you're turning that way, and you're just going back and forth, and it feels like you're not going anywhere yet, and it's very exhausting. But I think the harder part for me was actually coming down, because I ran out of water on my last 45 minutes.
Okay.
And I know that's not much, especially when you're coming back down, but I had never done the hike in the late summer. I had only ever done it in early summer or late spring, where the water from the falls is just gushing, so it's always misty.
Right.
And so it was new. The heat was new, and it was not friendly. I'll tell you that much.
I was gonna say, keep it real. You were hot.
It was hot.
Yeah.
my lips are still talking to me about it. They're a little chapped.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so consequently, how are you feeling today? Are you feeling like your whole body is rebuilding?
Oh my gosh, that's the weirdest thing. So I woke up this morning. I was very scared to wake up, first of all, because after a really big hike, or just a lot of training your muscles, because I know the gyms are closed at the moment because of COVID, but I used to always go to the gym after work every day or right before work, and leg day was always my hardest. And I slept really, really hard after leg day because it's just such a big muscle to use and to actually work out. So I was using my legs all day yesterday. So I was wondering how I was going to be able to get up today.
Yep.
And I woke up, I was fine. My calves are a little bit sore, but it showed me that I was actually really prepared for the hike, a lot more than I thought I would be. Or I'm lying to myself, and tomorrow I'm not going to be able to get out of bed because my legs are so sore. We don't know yet. We'll figure it out tomorrow.
Yeah, we'll see. Wow, I think that is super great. Now, do you hike all the time, or do you do other things? Do you bike? Do you run?
I try to run around my neighborhood, but since it's been over 100 degrees the past 2 weeks in the East Bay and Oakley, we aren't really going out much. I try to stay out of the sun as much as possible because I get sunburnt really easily with as much sunscreen as I do wear. But I usually am more so a bodybuilder. I lift weights. So not being able to do that, I use resistance bands at home as much as I can in the garage. So I work out at home. And then I don't bike, but I do hike because we have regional trails all over our county, and they're absolutely beautiful. And a lot of them are quite strenuous at times.
Sure. So talk to me about where you're from. Where are you located?
I'm located in Oakley, California, the heart of the Delta.
Okay.
And this is the East Bay. So the Oakland side is how I interpret it to other people.
Okay.
And so we are actually a part of the Bay where there used to be, and there still somewhat is, a lot of porting. So a lot of shipment goods used to come around here. We have a lot of the refineries on this side. So a lot of the big booms during the Rosie the Riveter era, World War II, a lot of it started on the East Bay.
Really? Okay. Give me a little more history. What are we talking about?
So Rosie the Riveter is originally from Alameda County.
Okay.
And a lot of that, so a lot of it was underwater welding. And Richmond more so was created during World War II. So if you see a lot of the original homes that were built there, there are a lot of singular units. They're really small. They might be like a 3-bedroom, 1-bath, or a 2-bedroom, 1-bath, because those were actually used as military housing. So for your child and your wife and yourself when you came back. And so that's why the grids are created so differently compared to other cities in the area.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I like cool little history facts like that. Yeah. Now, can you talk to me a little bit about your childhood? What was it like? Walk me through a day in your early childhood. I'm talking 6 years old.
Oh, those were really good days.
Okay.
Those were really good days. So I grew up in San Mateo, California, so the south side of the Bay.
Okay.
And my mom was very akin to the people around there. And so she felt really safe with us playing outside all day long. We used to live in an apartment complex. And so she was okay with us playing in the grass right out front of our apartment. And I'm originally one of 6 siblings,
Wow.
and I grew up with 3 of them. So there was the 4 of us. We were the coolest kids on the block, and like we brought all the kids out when we used to hang out with all of them. But it was more so me and my brother because my sisters were 5 years younger. So they were newborns when we were hanging out at 6.
Right.
But we used to, like, I was rollerblading at like midnight sometimes, like all across San Mateo, because my mom knew the place like the back of her hand and she felt safe enough to just let us roam.
Wow.
Or maybe she's busy doing other things. I don't know. But it was the best thing ever. It's like summer nights never ended either.
Wow. And the summer seemed so long when we were younger.
Oh my gosh, I know.
Summer seemed like half a year. It's like, I mean, the summers were like really long. I would be like almost like ready to go back to school. You know what I mean? Like, okay, it's been a long summer. You know, at some point we should be getting back to school here. But you were rollerblading at 12 o'clock at night.
Oh yeah, they were. And it depends on where you're from too, actually, because out here for certain school districts, they have what's called year-round.
Okay, like you went to school all year round.
Yeah, so they do take a break in the summer,
Mm-hmm.
but it's a lot shorter than it was for me when I was over in San Mateo. Like, say we started late August in San Mateo, and over here they start late July,
Mm-hmm.
but they ended in June. So
okay, yeah, I get it.
really short summer.
I get it. So, talk about the dynamics between your brothers and sisters. What was that like? Did you all, do things together? Did you guys have traditions and games that you played?
Very interesting question. Super complex. How do I put it? So my brother was the oldest of all of us. He's a year and 8 months older than me. So if I'm 23 now, he's 25.
Mm-hmm.
And my sisters are 17. They turn 18 this next month.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's an interesting dynamic considering that myself and the girls are 5 years apart. So for my brother, they're 6 years apart, almost 7.
Mm-hmm.
So my brother and I bonded a lot. We had the same mom, same dad, and we grew up together for quite some time without other siblings.
Okay.
And so we were really, really close. And then as soon as our sisters came into the picture, we more so took it as an opportunity to also take care of them too. So it
Mhm.
was more so a parenting role as soon as they came to be. It was somewhat sibling like, where as soon as the girls were able to actually come outside and play with us, we would teach them how to ride their bikes. Um, but it was interesting. It was very interesting. I would say I was always 100% with my brother most of the time during my childhood,
Right.
and my sisters were more so staying with my mom and being raised by her.
Hmm. And so you pretty much, after your sisters were born, you kind of went into teacher mode, or almost like, well, really big sister mode. But I mean, that really started a lifestyle of helping others, like in a more deep sense. Would you say that?
I would, but I actually don't at all think that I knew a single speck or an iota of like what I wanted to do in life, if
Hmm.
that makes sense. I only actually figured that out once I entered foster care. But when I was taking care of my sisters, it definitely was a parenting role. So I was most akin to that, even with them growing up too, and fostering them for a little bit of time a couple years ago.
Hmm. So how and when did you actually enter foster care?
I entered foster care December 12th, 2012. So I was 15, and then my birthday's in January. So I turned 16 the next month. So usually when I say how old I was, I'm like, does it really count if I was 15? Because my birthday was upcoming.
Hmm.
Um, but I entered foster care on some weird pretenses. And by weird, I mean really sad, kind of dark, and how come the neighbors didn't see it coming type of pretenses.
Right.
So we were living in Antioch at the time, which is one of my neighboring cities now.
Okay.
I never moved that far. And so my mom and my sister's dad, so my stepdad, um, they had not paid rent for, I want to say, 3+ months.
Okay.
And the water was not running anymore. That was also shut off. And then our PG&E, so our gas and electric, was also shut off for a couple months. And it was Christmas time. So it had been a minute. And what had happened was my mom picked us up from school. So my brother went to an opposite school that I did. He was doing independent study. And then I was across Brentwood, which is where we all went to school. And then my sisters were at an elementary school across from there. So my mom had to come pick us all up. But I was waiting at the store across the street for her for like 2 hours. And I was wondering what was going on. And I had stayed with one of my good friends the night before. So I actually didn't know what had happened at the house that prior night, which was a huge altercation between her and my brother and my stepdad. And it was a huge blowout. And I think a lot of it had to deal with it being very tense in the house because of the lack of everything going on. So, like, not paying all our bills and just having everything shut off. But I got into the car finally, and I was like, hey, thanks for picking me up.
Right.
Just happy to go home.
Right.
Because if we're going to school in Brentwood and I lived in Antioch, I couldn't walk home even if I wanted to.
Right.
And so my mom picked us up, and it was really tense in the car. And I was curious to know why, but she was already fighting with my brother. At some point, she starts getting physical, starts hitting him, turns the car around, starts driving us somewhere else. We're on the freeway. My mom pulls over. She drops my brother off on the side of the freeway, tries to leave him there because they were arguing, and then she just ran back to the car. And it was a lot of stuff going on. So I was out of the car. I was trying to calm my sisters down. My mom and my brother were fighting like down the freeway shoulder. And I was just trying to make sense of it all, but trying to keep the girls safe and trying to make sure that my brother got back in the car, which didn't happen. So my mom got back in the car and she just started taking off. So she immediately started the car back on. The girls are still in their seats. My brother is not in the car yet. And I said, Mom, stop, Mom, stop. She took off. My door was open. I was like halfway out the car. So the car door slams on my leg. I finally get in. Thankfully, I didn't fall out. We get home, and I told my mom to turn around when we were on the freeway. And it was so sad to me. Like, even now, it's really heavy. I told her, I was like, turn back around and get him. And of course, having that time being really strenuous with bills and our finances, she looked at me and said, I don't have enough gas to go get him. That sucks. And I was just like blown away. And it was so sad to like look at my brother through the back window of the car, and he just gets smaller and smaller and smaller the farther away we drive. And so eventually we made it home, and it was getting darker because daylight saving, it gets darker earlier in the winter. So we finally get home, and I'm freaking out wondering where my brother is. And my sisters are freaking out too. And my mom is being a tyrant because she was also heavily using narcotics. She was using a lot of drugs. She was using methamphetamines, Oxycontin. She was drinking heavily. And none of that really helps with someone who has mental disorders. And it kind of amplifies them too at the same time. And she was undiagnosed actually. But I do feel that a lot of what stemmed from her anger issues, being domestically violent, was a lot of her drug use. And because of that, it made our childhood really difficult. So we're waiting for my brother, and we were just really worried. So we were sitting in my sister's room, and we're looking out the window because there's no lights. Our lights are off. Mm-hmm. So we pulled the string to the folding, what do you call these things? Curtain.
Blinds?
Yeah, the blinds.
Okay.
We pulled them up so the light could show in from the street light. And we just stared at the street. It was dead quiet in the house. And we were just staring at the street, like with our fingers crossed, and we were holding our breath. And a sheriff's car pulls up to our house. And we were like, ooh, this is not good. We didn't know that my brother was in the car. We just knew a sheriff's car pulled up to our house. They're most likely going to come in. And this must have been because of what just happened on the freeway.
Right, yep.
So he comes to the door, and I wait to answer it because my mom was always like, you don't answer the door. And if you do, tell them I'm not here. Because you don't want to be taken away from your siblings, do you? You don't want to be taken away from me in this house. And it was a fear factor. And of course I don't, because I don't know what's going to happen as soon as I am taken out. Mm-hmm. So we looked at the car, and my brother, like, you saw someone moving in the passenger seat, and it was actually my brother. Somehow he got picked up. So we were super excited about that and really happy because we knew where he was, and he was safe for all we knew, because it's not like he was at the hospital. He was there. Mm-hmm. And at this point, it had been a really, really long road of constantly being involved with the police because of our mom, our parents, and that cycle of finding a new place, being evicted, moving out, on and on and on again. And having to move schools because of it, and really trying to like stay to one school. So I was tired of it because this had been the worst it had gotten to. And I opened the door when the officer knocked. I opened the door. She said, tell him I'm not here. So the officer's shining a light in my face because he can't see anything and he can't see inside. Mm-hmm. So he's like, hi, I'm Sheriff so-and-so, or Deputy so-and-so. Is your mom home, or are your parents home? And she's staring at me. This was a 2-story house. So she's at the top of the stairs, which faces directly at the door. Mm-hmm. And she was like, here. And so I looked at him, and it was such a pivotal moment to me looking back now, because that's what really started everything in entering foster care. I said, "Yes, she is. Please come in."
Right.
And there were candles lit because there were no lights.
Mm-hmm.
And he came in and he called her by her name. He said, "Come down." And she said no. And I was like, "What is going on?" Like, there's an officer here. Um, so she finally comes down, and my sisters come down too. They're very worried. They're shaken up because they don't know what's going to happen now that an officer is in the house. And he asked them what happened. He asked my sisters what had happened. He asked my mom what had happened and if she understood the magnitude of what she just did. And then he asked me what happened. And my story aligned perfectly with my brother's story. And he was sitting in the car, so he couldn't tell me anything. So after that, he took me outside and he let me go talk to my brother. And he gave us some alternatives at that moment. And he said, "You can stay with your friends, or I can send you to a safe house with child welfare and have a social worker come pick you up. If you would prefer staying with one of your friends, here's my phone, please call them." And my mom was getting really rambunctious to the point where he was threatening to cuff her, and he didn't want to do it in the front of her family. And she was just like, click, click. Like, she was just beyond me at that moment.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was able to stay with one of my friends. My brother was able to stay with one of his friends. My sisters were not, but they stayed at the safe house for, I think, a night. And the neighbor next door actually took them in for a bit, because they also worked in child welfare. So we were very fortunate with that, and they were wonderful people, still are. But that was the night we hit it off. And after that, we went through months and months of court hearings, and it just felt like going through the motions, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to say upwards of 25 to 27 reports of neglect and abuse on my case file when I was younger. And during that time, out of all of those, not once was I removed from my home, and not once did I enter foster care. My brother did for a short period of time, but I didn't, my sisters didn't. So for that to go on for so long, it was a no-brainer for me to enter care regardless of what the circumstances were or the consequences, because it couldn't really get much worse than that. Or it could, and I just don't want to see it from my family side, like staying at home. I would rather be in foster care and work things out. So yeah, that happened.
How old were you when the circumstance happened on the freeway?
I was 15.
So at 15 years old, your life pretty much reached a boiling point where everything became dysfunctional, to the point where your brothers and sisters got broken up, your mother got in jeopardy with the child welfare system, if not the police as well. How did you keep yourself together?
That's a really good question. I don't really have much of an answer for that, except for knowing that it was our rock bottom. So it was not going to get worse than that in my eyes. And if it did, I was ready to handle it. So being the caretaker of my sisters, I was just always in parent mode too. So it was, that night was pretty nerve-wracking because I didn't know where they were.
Mm-hmm.
So myself and my brother were trying to keep tabs. We were staying connected via text message and phone call. But super nerve-wracking. And I really focused on school at that time too. It was difficult because my mom had also, after I had left that night, she stole my textbooks for school. And I found most of them when I came back to grab my stuff, like a week later. But I actually couldn't find my English textbook, and that's why I didn't pass that class, was because I didn't have my English textbook. And it's hard to explain that to your teacher, saying, hi, a lot of stuff just happened at home, but she wasn't very accepting of that. So I retook the class during the summer. But it was really difficult to focus on school. The friend that I was staying with, she went to a neighboring school. So I didn't have her to talk to. I didn't have many friends at school to begin with. So it was just really hard to focus on that.
Right. So out of nowhere, you were just under immense pressure, and it looks like that made you into a total warrior at life, because here you are hiking Yosemite just yesterday, and you're doing the best that you can today, and I have a lot of respect for that. I just want to ask you, how many different schools did you go to before this climactic event took place?
Oh my goodness. I switched elementary schools twice, middle schools twice, and then high schools twice.
Okay. So you were accustomed to pretty much always being on the move, always being on the move.
And always being the new person.
Yeah, always being the new person. Did you ever get good at being the new person?
I learned to not take things too personally, as in I feel like everything was kind of a missed opportunity because I didn't grow up with the people I went to school with.
Mm-hmm.
And I noticed that a lot of them, they grew up together. They were almost like brothers and sisters. And if they didn't actually grow up together, they did sports together. Mm-hmm. And my family couldn't afford that, so I couldn't participate in that. Mm-hmm. So it was really hard. So I mostly focused strictly on my academics as much as I could, and just checking in with my siblings as much as I could at the same time.
Mm-hmm. Erica, ladies and gentlemen, we're talking to Erica Hickey Smith today, and she has a very tremendous story, and we're already proud of her today. Erica, there are young ladies and young men clear across America whose lives are being shaken to the core right now because their parents are fighting and arguing, and there's dysfunction, there's drugs, there's alcohol, and maybe, just maybe, they'll happen upon one of these episodes in the future. I want you to take about 15 seconds and talk to a young person who's going through things that you've already been through.
Oh, 15 seconds?
Yep.
Okay. Life is what you make it. There is no stopping. You can take breaks. It's okay to take breaks. It's okay to figure yourself out. But you are loved, and you are capable, and you are very worthy of the successes that you deserve, and you're going to earn them, and you'll learn what that's like. And I promise you that right now seems really, really hard, and time seems a lot longer than it is. But once you get older, time flies by, and you'll see, and you'll be able to look back on your past accomplishments and keep going forward.
Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be right back with Erica Hickey. America's Next Motivator, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 5 p.m. Eastern, Tuesday and Thursday at 10 a.m. Eastern. America's Next Motivator, hosted by me, Cedric Riley, and sponsored by the Pride Empowerment Network. And we're back. Hey, Erica, how you feeling?
I'm hanging in there. Nothing's changed much. Thank goodness.
You're doing a great job. You're doing a great job so far. And I just want to just let you know that. Would you say that everybody deserves to have a good, stable home environment? Would you say that?
Can you repeat that?
Everybody deserves a good, stable home environment. Would you say that?
Yeah, and I would go farther than deserve, and I would say that's one of those necessities.
It's a right.
Yeah.
It's a right. Um, do you think that your life would have been different if a foster care or any sort of a child welfare agency would have come forward to help fix your family, to help to create levels of healing instead of putting you in foster care?
I'm of two minds about that. I feel like my parents were too far gone to actually seek any type of preventative services that would somehow keep our family intact. And sadly, I feel like that's the same issue for a lot of young people that are probably facing foster care right now.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think that that's meriting the fact that they should be provided prevention services. I think there's always a chance for parents to turn it around and really strengthen and focus on supporting their children. Sometimes it's generational too, where they didn't grow up with parents that actually taught them how to take care of other people, take care of themselves, respect themselves. And so it's just generational where it keeps going and it keeps going. And I think that was the case for us as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I do believe that if foster care is a viable option and it's the safer one, then so be it. If you feel that you can enter it and you don't have relatives that you can go into kinship care with, then yes, I do feel like that's a possibility. And, you know, everyone has different opinions about how they see foster care. And I completely wholeheartedly respect all of them. For myself, though, I felt like it was the hugest pivotal factor in where I am today and what I do today as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So can you talk about some of the positive experiences that you had in foster care and how they helped to mold you into the woman that you are today?
Yeah. Immediately, as soon as I entered care, I was staying with my friend. And so her mom actually kept me too. So I was able to stay with her for a majority of my high school time. And then I eventually moved in with another friend. So thankfully, I only moved twice, and it was with people that I knew.
Okay.
It's not the case for a lot of other young people. But I went to something called the Independent Living Skills Program.
Okay.
A lot of other counties call it Independent Living Program. We keep the S in Cocoa County.
Mm-hmm.
And so I met the ILSP coordinator, and his name is Don. And I consider Don the biggest game changer in a lot of young people's lives in Cocoa County. And I'm leaning in because this to me is so wholeheartedly true.
Let's rock and roll.
And so I met him at a workshop because young people between, I think, 16 to 18 are able to go to these workshops.
Mm-hmm.
So I met him, and it was me and my brother. And this was me and my brother's time to actually spend together outside of school, and the fact that we didn't live with each other. We could actually be here, even if we are learning, because that's what we're supposed to do in the workshop. But like during our breaks, just being next to each other and seeing his face and knowing he was safe was the biggest thing for me. And I'm sure it was for him too.
Mm-hmm.
So we go to the ILSP workshop. Don's like, "Hi, I'm Don Graves," and we go, "Hey, I'm so and so and Erica," and
Right.
so he walks us down this hallway, and it's like a hallway of history, basically, at the office.
Okay.
And it has news clippings, it has old T-shirts that they made, and like current things going on. Showed us the kitchen, the actual layout of the place, and it all came to fruition for like because of what he envisioned it to be. And he said it just came to me one day, and I said, "We need to do this. We need this building." And I thought it was incredible to know that what he was sharing. So the newspaper clippings, a lot of them were talking about the successes of young people in foster care and the pitfalls. So a lot of young people, before AB 12 extended foster care in California was passed back in 2010, implemented in 2012, really, which is the year we all entered foster care. Young people were being kicked out of their homes and becoming homeless when they were 18, and a lot of them didn't even graduate high school yet. So
That's
if you think about trying to go to high school while being homeless, not understanding what's going on or why you were just immediately kicked out, like you knew you're coming of age, but then a lot of times it's okay, we did our job, bye, because no one's being paid for you anymore. No one's getting a child welfare supplement for you anymore.
So if you can help me to understand what you're saying, for our listeners and viewers out there who might not be familiar with what's been happening in foster care for the past, few decades, you're telling me that people are in foster care, they might be in a program or two, and then on their 18th birthday, for instance, my birthday is coming up in 5 days. The day after their birthday, they're homeless?
Yeah, a lot of the times, this was prior to extended foster care, but a lot of the times young people would come home to their stuff already being packed up in usually trash bags. So like that's the iconic symbol. It's like a black trash bag with all of our stuff in it. And yeah, that's exactly what would happen for a lot of young people. And they try to figure out where to go. And hopefully some of them can stay with friends or colleagues, maybe couch surf until they can graduate high school. But it makes it that much more difficult for them to become successful in life and to actually do what they wanted to do. On top of already dealing with the barriers of switching schools constantly. So they're trying to learn, but when they get to the next school, it's backwards. They don't know what they're teaching and they can't compensate for that. So they're immediately falling behind with more and more schools that they transfer to.
Would you say that this was a lot of teenagers being affected this way, or like too few to count, or was there a whole lot of them? So
many. 3% of foster youth, even today, graduate from a 4-year college. That's nothing. Over 50% become homeless as soon as they exit foster care. Wow. So there's no way that this is a small number. About 50%, barely 50%, I would say generously, actually graduate high school. And we're trying to increase those numbers. But the way we do that is we have to figure out where these pitfalls are, and they're obvious, they're right there. So trying to maintain a sufficient education for them, trying to stay in one spot for long enough to get things straight and try to support themselves.
Right.
So there's a lot that goes into it. But I would say that to answer your question, it is a very big number, and it still sadly is today.
Now, what did you decide to do after you graduated from high school?
Once I graduated from high school, and there was a lot that went into it, I didn't think I was going to go to any type of college before I entered foster care. I just thought I was going to grab a quick job and make sure that I was able to support my family.
Wait.
So as soon as I entered care,
You're telling me that at 14, you had no aspirations after college you just wanted to go grab a job down the street at the neighborhood pharmacy or something like that?
I had no idea what I was gonna do. That's the weird thing about it too, because my mom was she was a process server, so I basically grew up in the courts, and it was a weird time. So I was used to the courts, and I really liked their type of paperwork. I love paperwork. It's a weird thing. I understand that.
Uh,
And so I always wanted to do something like that, but I just, knowing that there were so many immediate needs in my household, I didn't think that far ahead, and I didn't feel like I had the luxury of doing so. So that was my first immediate thing, was to go find a job. I had no idea what I was going to do. Like that's how much I could only look at this present moment.
Sure. Okay. I just wanted to unfold that a little bit. Okay. Fast forward back. So we're talking after high school, and you're figuring out how you're going to get to college and what that's going to look like.
Yes. So I applied to four-year colleges. I got into them, more so the California State Universities. I never applied to the UCs. So we have CSUs and UCs in California.
Mm-hmm.
Rumor goes that you want to go to a UC, but if you go to higher education, you make it and you love it, then so be it, you know?
Absolutely.
So I actually ended up going to the community college. It was Diablo Valley College, go Vikings. And I decided to get my general education out of the way there. A big component of why I chose the community college was the fact that I only had to pay $1 a unit for any classes that I took,
Okay.
because I was a former foster youth or current foster youth.
That's great.
So on top of the scholarships that I got and the grants, I was saving those until I could transfer to a four-year college. But a big component in why I chose that was strictly because of the $1 a unit. Can save that. I already got scholarships for books. It was solid. I didn't have much of a commute. I could stay where I was living at the time. And it was tremendous. And I didn't have huge waits for my general ed classes like I would at a university.
That is great that you were able to find a way to get that done. And it's also great that somebody's leadership resulted in you being able to pursue college at $1 a credit. So big kudos to who all helped to make that happen. I think that's great.
Thank you, Don. Thank you, Pat.
Right. Yeah, people like that. And so, okay, after college, what did you do next?
So at the time when I was at the community college, I was also a policy intern for California Youth Connection. It's a nonprofit, and we work on legislative work. It's youth led, so young people talk about issues that are happening in foster care today. They create solutions, and then they form policy recommendations, and they go lobby them and pass them at the state capitol. And that was
amazing.
Yeah, and that was a part of the walkthrough of the office that Dawn gave me, and it blew my mind because, you know, I had just found my voice by advocating for myself and my siblings with the deputy at home, and all of a sudden I was in foster care meeting all these new people, and to know that other young people across the state of California also had a voice in what happens to them on a legal level was astonishing to me. I couldn't actually wrap my brain around it. And I thought it was the biggest opportunity that any of us could have in foster care. So I was a policy intern for CYC. And so I would commute to Oakland every so often, every Friday. And then I would do my community work, my local issue I would work on in Contra Costa County, my county. So I was going to community college, doing my internship, and then I ended up landing a role as a youth peer advocate. So I had the opportunity to be a founder of another program called the Spark Initiative, and we created our logo, our mission, exactly what we do. And it was an amazing experience. And it continued to push me to where I am today. So
Okay.
it was a program that was supported and funded by Voices, which is where I work now.
Okay.
And and this is where it comes to show that your network really, it's such a big factor in where you can go in life as well. Because I just knew the person that was looking for people to apply to it. Erica, can you send me some applications, some resumes from other people in your county? We're looking for a case manager for this or youth peer advocate for this. Yeah, sure, no problem. And I had people apply and I applied as well. And it was so amazing to actually get the experience to build a program, understanding what it takes to build a program, and then implement it and go into different service providers in the county and give them a spiel like, hi, we're youth advocates and we would really like to support young people that you work with. How do you feel about this? And it was a grind. It was a big grind, but a missing component of it was the fact that I still wanted to do policy work like I do at CYC.
Okay.
And so I let my director know that. And this was during the time where I had just transferred to the UC. So I got into UC Davis.
Congratulations.
And thank you. Go Aggies.
Yep.
And and by the way, I had a court-appointed special advocate. She is one of my greatest cheerleaders. I love her to death. Her name is Catherine. And she is one of my very close friends now. I would even call her my second mom. And she was the one that told me I needed to apply to at least 2 UCs.
Okay.
And I was like, no. Because imposter syndrome is so real. It really is.
Syndrome. What is that?
Feeling like you don't belong somewhere, like it's not yours, even though you literally earned it. You're just trying to come up with excuses of why it's not yours or why it's someone else's and not yours. And I fought with that so hard at the UC, and I stayed there for a year. So I had my credentials from community college transferred over and somehow busted out a year. So I didn't have to do 2 years. So I didn't have to pay tuition. I didn't have to pay any tuition thanks to all the support from the scholarships and the grants that were provided for young people in foster care. Literally nothing. I went to a UC, nothing.
Great.
That's amazing to me.
It was amazing.
Like debt free. It's weird. And
no, it wasn't weird. It was
weird to think of.
Yeah. Yes. It was fortune that was enabled by the hard work of people who realized that youth coming out of foster care are disadvantaged and they need help. So that was a victory. Your completion of college, Erica, was a victory. And it's a great example of what happens when somebody is determined to find a way to be successful. They find the opportunities, they find the programs and the people. And there's help out there if you go out there and look for it.
There really is. And, I think a lot of it is trying to figure out where you belong. And then at the end of it all, you figure out you belong somewhere that you want to be. It's just where you want to be.
Absolutely.
And so even when I graduated from Davis, it was more so going with the flow for me. I was like, okay, I got my degree. I can just continue my work as a policy director. It's just another credential under my belt. But the people around me that didn't necessarily understand what foster care was, but they knew it wasn't the best place for a young person, or something had to have happened that was worse than for them to enter foster care, is something that really hits people. And so I can share statistics all day. 3% are here, 3% are here. But to me, it's just statistics, and I'm moving with my emotions to make sure that I'm successful and to make sure that I'm creating opportunities for other young people in the future. that's my ultimate goal, and I just keep going with it. I think about it here and there, like to take a step back and be humble and appreciate things. But most of the time, I will be very honest with you and say I have to have other people pull me back and tell me to look at this. So next to me is a graduation gift that my best friend Emily gave to me. And she had no idea what foster care was until she met me, and I shared with her about it. And then she actually is now a CASA herself.
Wow.
Because she doesn't feel she has the means to take in a foster child or a foster youth right now, but she still wants to support them in any way she can. So any volunteer opportunities. And she said, I could be a CASA. And
yep.
Like, wow, you know, and it says what you think you become, what you feel you attract, and what you imagine you create. And it says class of 2019, congratulations, Erica, team 3%. And I'm not kidding when I say she actually, yes, and she came to my finals with me. She hung out in the car. She hung out in the quad at school. She actually came to school with me to make sure I was fully prepped and that I felt I had someone there for me while I was going through my last finals of my quarter. And she's just over the moon. Like, people don't understand just how amazing it is to have support. And it makes a huge difference. It really does in all of your successes, your different motivations. Because like, I can say I want to go do something. Most of the time I say, oh, that's cool. That'd be cool to do. But I'm busy doing other things. I don't really feel like, you know, I don't feel like that's really for me. I don't really feel like I have the time. Again, making excuses because I don't really feel like I fit that quota. Right. And so for someone else that's not a part of the child welfare realm and didn't have to endure foster care to actually say like, oh, by the way, you do deserve this. It's quite obvious. It's like, it really hits you hard, you know?
Yolanda Riley says, wow, I was a CASA years ago. And in case you just realized, Erica, Yolanda has been here this entire episode making positive comments. She's been listening to your story amongst other people. So you're making a big difference today by sharing your story. And I just want to ask you a couple more questions before we round out here. What are the top 3 things that you would like to see happen in the child welfare space? Top 3.
Top 3. Strongly supporting financial success of young people. So extending foster care benefits, at least until the age of 25 in the nation. 100% supporting the education, higher education that young people apply to. Okay. Continued support after the exit of foster care, if you will. So, you know, we always talk about the state being the parent of a young person in care. And we think of actual family ties. And, you know, I've noticed, at least for my friends nowadays, that they go back home. They go back home and they check in with their family. They go back home and they have to live there for a bit because they're moving on to different things. There's a transition in their life where they have to stay at home for a bit and then they can move out once they get a bigger job or they're focusing on other things with their families. Young people in care don't get that. They can't text someone that used to be their caseworker and say, hey, I really need help with this. It feels like a burden to do that because our case is closed and the person's more than likely not going to respond. And I think from a level of, from a perspective of like child welfare too, we can't expect that person to respond always because think of how many cases they've closed out within their like 25 years of being a social worker, you know?
Yep. Erica, I've had a great conversation with you today. We're down to our last minute. This is the power minute, and I need you to answer 3 questions in 40 seconds. The first question is, what is survival to you?
Okay.
Go ahead.
Survival is making it, but not thriving.
What is success to you?
Success is what you make of it. So your own goals, not what society tells you.
What's greatness to you?
Greatness to me is what you build upon and what you can see in future generations to come.
Erica Hickey, I want to let you know that your story is tremendous. Your journey and your breakthrough has been admirable. I want to let you know dozens and thousands and hundreds, anywhere in between, of young people and families have been impacted by what you've done in the past and what you're going to do in the future. And for that, I respect you. I want to give you a crown today while you're still living. And I want to let you know, Erica Hickey, that you are America's next motivator.
Thank you so much, Cedric. It really means a lot to me. Thank you so much for having me on.
You're quite welcome. Thanks so much. All right. Bye-bye. Ladies and gentlemen, didn't we do it? Yet another story making it plain that youth in foster care are America's next motivators. And when you stop by here each and every episode, there's going to be something here for you. You just need to come and pick it up.